Hey y'all, my name is Alexis Wiggins, and I'm here to do my presentation about constructivism. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is constructivism? Constructivism is a learning theory, and it says that people construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experiencing things and then reflecting back on those experiences. When we encounter something new, we have to merge it with our previous ideas and experiences. And that might change what we believe, and it might even discard the new information, meaning it was irrelevant. We are creating our own knowledge through those different experiences. And to do this, we must ask questions, explore, and assess what we know. So the theorists behind constructivism are Jean Piaget, John Dewey, Jerome Bruner, and Lev Vygotsky. All right, so let's talk about the differences between the traditional ideas and a constructivist classroom. So in a traditional classroom, a teacher will stand in front of the class and just kind of spew out information, kind of like water overflowing from a fountain, and the students may or may not understand. So in a constructivist classroom, the teacher is more of a facilitator, and the students are urged to be more involved in active learning. The desks are no longer in the rows facing the front, but they're in groups and they're facing each other, their peers. There's collaboration and discussion among students during most of the activities throughout the day as well. Students are now in charge of their own learning, and they are responsible for their own learning. Learning shifts from repetition to an interactive learning based on pre-existing knowledge, kind of like those experiences that we use and we reflect back on. Knowledge is viewed as dynamic and ever-changing with the different experiences we encounter in life. Like I said, those experiences kind of shape our ideas. The class is no longer strictly adhered to the curriculum either. It involves more student questions and interest. Let's talk about the PAR model. So the PAR model is a suggested model founded on the constructivism theory based on research collected from experiments. So those experiments sought to see which type of teaching promotes the most effective learning for students. The model places a lot of emphasis on students taking more responsibility for their own learning and the teacher acting as a facilitator, like constructivism. In order for the model to be effective, all three parts of the model have to be delivered. The three parts are the presentation, the application, and the review. So let's talk about those three parts. So part one, the presentation. So during this part of the PAR model, the teacher will present the lesson. There will be a short little orientation, and the teacher will explain the preparation and goals of the activity. During this time is when students will recall and check back to those previous experiences in their prior learning, and a structure for the topic will be provided. This is also when the teacher will, in the class as well, will set some goals, and the teacher will also use this time to motivate learners. I had an idea that this might be a fun time for students to complete a KWL chart. It's kind of like a T-chart with three sections. So the K is one part, and that means it stands for what the student already knows. And then the middle part would be the W, what the student wants to learn. And then at the end of the lesson, you could have students fill out what they learned, the L section at the end. So students could fill out the first two sections during the presentation part of the PAR model. And then during the review part of the PAR model, they could fill out the L slot. And that could also be used as an assessment for teachers to pick up at the end of the lesson. So let's go to the application part. During this part of the PAR model, students will work towards goals set in part one, and they will work on applying their new learning. Kind of self-explanatory. And the last section, the review. During the review, this is when learning should be summarized. Any clarifications still needed should be given. And this is when you would give some sort of assessment to check the understanding of the material. All right, so a scenario I came up with, you could use constructivism to teach or whatever, is a lesson on oceans. The teacher would start the lesson by asking students to fill out that KWL chart that we just talked about. I think that's a great easy tool that students, it's not hard to comprehend. It's very simple and straightforward. So I think that's a great tool. Have the students write down something they already know about oceans in the K area. And for this part, I wouldn't necessarily have a class discussion because it could affect each child's prior learning if they hear something for their prior learning. So next, I would have the students fill out what they want to know or what they want to find out during this lesson. This one I would discuss as a class because that allows me as the teacher to try to incorporate those things that students that are interested in learning into the lesson. I would explain that after this lesson, the students will break up into groups to complete a children's book or a poster about oceans, and that they would present them to the class upon completion. I would teach the lesson using both books as well as technology. And next, we would apply our knowledge. This is when I would create the groups among the students and allow them time to work on their presentation. At the end, I would have the students fill out the last section, the L section, what they learned, and tell me 3 to 5 things about what they learned in the lesson. I would then use the presentation along with the KWL chart to assess the students' learning on the lesson. I would use this lesson probably for 3rd, 4th grade. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Have a good day.